In Jerusalem for endtimes.com, this is Brian Schrauger. Hanukkah Sameach. Happy Hanukkah. And Merry Christmas, too. As far apart and yet as one, we celebrate this year's holidays of light. Our Tipping Point family is with their family and friends. While they are, I invite you to revisit our tour of the city of David, hosted by Israeli archaeologist, fellow believer, and good friend, Yehuda Rapoport. Today, we return to the entrance of this hugely significant archaeological site, meet up with Yehuda, and begin our descent to the biblically famous Pool of Siloam. Way down to the Pool of Siloam, where you are doing your primary work here. But where are we now? What are we looking at?
We're actually on the eastern slope of the city, and as we're climbing up, this below, what you see, all these ruins, are the remains of the wall that goes back to the 8th century BC. So this is one of the first walls of Jerusalem.
Is this the wall you mentioned was burnt and knocked down by Nebuchadnezzar?
Yes. Yeah, I believe this is. You can see, in fact, if you look over in the corner here, you can see the
ash.
The ash, this gray ash.
Huh.
And so you have remains of this wall.
Wow.
I think it's been dated to the 8th century. So this is part of the original fortifications.
Just above you to the left is the Temple Mount.
There's the Temple Mount. So we're actually outside of the old city. We aren't in what's called the old city now. We're in actually a more ancient place. This was the city before the old city was actually built. So the first part of the city was this, where we are now, and then later, when David built the altar where the Temple Mount is, he extended the hill up that way, and then later Solomon, his son, built the first temple there. And then again, of course, it's the location of the second temple, the temple that Yeshua, that Jesus came to. So it's the very same place.
This might be a good time to talk about you as a believer in Yeshua, living here in Israel as a highly respected archaeologist. Have you run into any kind of prejudice because of your belief?
Actually, no. I can say not anything to speak of. So we were welcomed here. Everybody, it's the first thing that everybody knows about me is that I'm a believer in Yeshua. I never had to tell anybody at work because all my colleagues would fill them in, would tell them for me. So it's been great. It's actually been great. There's an idea that you can't evangelize here, and there are a couple laws that they put in place that you're not supposed to evangelize minors, and you're not supposed to pay somebody to convert to another religion to believe in Yeshua. So those are the only real restrictions. And it's amazing how the freedom that we have actually to speak and to witness here. In some ways, I feel like it's a lot more free than the United States, where I was born.
Very interesting. Where were you born in the U.S.?
I was born in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, really?
In the 50s.
Huh. 1950 what?
5.
Ah, me too. We're the same age.
Really?
Yeah. When's your birthday?
March 1st. So I'm older than you.
Yes, I'm August.
Yeah.
It seems these days everyone I meet is younger than me. It's nice to meet someone who's older. So much older. Reporting from Israel for endtimes.com, this is Brian Schrauger. The man you just met is a 30-plus year archaeologist in Israel's singular authority for archaeology, the Israel Antiquities Authority, in short, the IAA. His name is Yehuda Rapoport, well known inside the IAA community. Yehuda not only is a highly respected colleague of that community, he's also a believer in Yeshua, in Jesus. I recently met up with Yehuda at Jerusalem, city of David. Most who visit Jerusalem tend to think that its old city is its oldest city, but it isn't. The oldest city of Jerusalem was on a narrow hilltop spit of land just south of the Temple Mount, outside the walls of today's old city. Constructed on a hill that descends from that location, the original city of Jerusalem, the one that King David conquered and rebuilt, the place where he made his palace, descends toward the biblically famous sites of the Gihon Spring and Pool of Siloam. For almost 1900 years, it lay covered in soil. Arab Palestinians built a village above and around it. Archaeological excavation of the site began in 1867, but wasn't seriously pursued until the latter part of the 20th century. Even today, at least half the site remains beneath Israeli Arab homes. Regardless, discoveries made so far are remarkable. King David's palace, the Gihon Spring tunnel built by King Hezekiah, the Pilgrim Road, a thoroughfare that everyone took to ascend the Temple Mount, and much more, including the Pool of Siloam, a huge structure used as a water source and for ritual purification for those ascending to the temple. It is also famously mentioned in the New Testament Gospel of John. Yeshua, Jesus, had just finished a significant challenge to Israel's religious leaders on the Temple Mount platform, the same one built by King Herod and still in use today. While there, he implicitly unveiled the sexual immorality of those leaders when they confronted him with a woman caught in adultery. Let the one among you who is sinless in this regard cast the first stone, he told them. Stunned into silence, and one by one, they all walked away. Refusing to condemn the woman, he admonished her, "Go, and sin no more." In further confrontation, members of the biblically conservative religious class insisted they were sons of Abraham and that Yeshua was demon-possessed. When Yeshua replied, "Truly, I tell you, before Abraham was born, I am," those same scholars picked up stones to kill him. Making his escape, Yeshua paused to deal with a man blind from birth. Why? His disciples asked. To glorify God, Yeshua replied. He then spat on the ground, scooped up a mud salve, and applied it to the blind man's eye sockets. "Go and wash this off," he told them. "Do it in the Pool of Siloam." The man did so. He was healed. He could see. There is more to the story, and it is well worth reading. For our purposes, however, the same Pool of Siloam is the end point of our exploration of the city of David with Israeli archaeologist Yehuda Rapoport. After finding our way to the city of David's official entrance, we are meeting up with Yehuda at the foundation of King David's palace. Hi, Yehuda.
Hi, Brian.
Thank you for meeting up today. You are an archaeologist with the Israel Antiquities Authority. Would you take a minute and just introduce us to who you are and where we are?
Yeah, my name is Yehuda Rapoport, and yes, I've worked with the Israel Antiquities Authority for well over 30 years.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of excavations all over the country. I've participated in a lot of them. I've directed some of them, and it's been a great ride.
So where are we today, and where are we right now?
Today we're actually in the most ancient part of Jerusalem. We're in what's called the City of David, and that's a term you'll find in the Bible, in the Book of Kings, and many other places. And where we're standing right now is very significant because this is reportedly the Palace of David, the actual place where David reigned.
So what are we looking at here?
You're looking at some of the structures. You're looking just really at the foundations of the building. Some of the cisterns that were here, some of the foundations of the stone buildings here. This was dug by Lot Mazar, who passed away unfortunately a couple years ago. And this was her baby. I actually worked with her grandfather when I first came here, Benjamin Mazar, who is one of the founders of archaeology in the country, one of the fathers of archaeology in the country. So I worked with him at the Temple Mount.
So what are we looking at over here? This sign says, "The remnants of King David's palace?" Question mark.
Well, that's the thing. Is
Right.
again, the whole question of dating. You have what's really important here is this capital that they've hung here.
Yes.
This was Israelite building at its best. You find these kind of capitals at the palaces. They have the two flutes and then the triangle in the middle, and these they're called Proto-Aeolic. And it may be that all the Aeolic capitals that you see from Greece developed out of this form.
Oh, really?
But what's interesting is, for us, is that it's actually a stylized palm tree.
Oh.
While they haven't actually found any in the temple, around the Temple Mount or in the Temple Mount excavations, these palm trees that were actually mentioned as being in the temple. And these were symbols of the tree of life.
Ah.
So in the temple, it talks about in Ezekiel, it talks about, in the book of Ezekiel, it talks about there being a palm tree and a cherub, a palm tree and a cherub. And so this goes back to, it sounds like, the book of Genesis, where you had the two cherubim and the tree of life. That they were guarding the way of the tree of life.
Wow. Fascinating.
So this is probably the place where David conquered. This is also in the Bible. The Bible talks about Mount Zion.
Yeah.
So this is actually Mount Zion. In later times, it's a long story, but in later times, actually in the Middle Ages probably, they started calling the Western Hill, which is some distance from us, Mount Zion, because they weren't sure where it is. But now we know that this is the place. The Citadel of Zion, it talks about, and the place where David actually conquered the city.
So as we walk, you and I met, in 2008 or something like that, a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Actually before that, I think 2007, when my son Christopher was here as a student at Hebrew University. And we met at, I think, the Jerusalem Assembly.
Probably Jerusalem.
The congregation you attend.
Yeah.
You are a believer in Yeshua.
That's right. Right now we're standing in what's called Area G. Everybody knows this area. This was one of the first places it was dug. First by Kathleen Kenyon, the British archaeology, back in the 1960s, I believe it was. And so she dug a good part of this. And then later, one of my professors at the Hebrew University, Yigal Shiloh, picked it up, and he did a lot more digging, and this is the way that he pretty much left it. So one of the reasons that we believe that the palace that we were just looking at may be the Palace of David, maybe the fortress, David's palace, is we have this huge, what they've called the stepped stone structure that runs up the hill, and that was actually to fortify this palace. They've dug in between, and they've found things that were actually before the time of David. And so it may have been a fortress before that time, and then David conquered it and made it his palace. You have these almost like boxes filled with stone, I think this is one of the toilets. I think this was a toilet here. Maybe I'm mistaken.
It does kind of look like one, yeah.
They found a couple toilets here, very famous toilets, with remains in them, which they've been able to date and analyze and do all kinds of things
Interesting.
with. But this was these two pillars that you see.
Right.
Were actually part of an Israeli house at the time that the city was destroyed. What I probably should have said from the beginning, we're down slope from the temple. So we're actually very close to the temple itself, to the Temple Mount, which is farther up north.
As we were walking this way, you mentioned the Babylonians did something right here.
When they attacked, they burnt the place. They really did a number on the place.
And this was how long ago?
This was actually in 586 BC.
Wow.
So this is 6th century BC. They found in here, little, what they're called boule. They're little stamps that they would put on official documents to seal them, made out of clay. And when the fire engulfed this area, these little stamps were cooked, were actually fired to the point that they became like stone. And so we have them, and some of them have names on them, and the names are recognizable. Some of them are even from the Bible, right out of the Bible.
Wow, fantastic. You know, you mentioned ash, and it reminds me, I did an interview with you, I think back in 2008 maybe, or something, 2007,
Yes.
I can't remember.
That's right.
We were over by the Temple Mount on the outside of the wall, we were looking at the rocks that had tumbled, that fell when
Titus destroyed the temple. And what's amazing is, for the first time in 2,000 years, you can actually put your hands in the very ash of the destruction of the temple. And this was a destruction that Yeshua, Jesus, actually spoke about. He said, but it was actually in the future to him. But he said that the temple would be destroyed, and that not one stone would be standing on another. And here were all the stones that had toppled down. And I think you can still do it. You go there, and the ash from when it was excavated not too long ago, all this was exposed, and the ash from the actual destruction of the temple. It's possible to put your hand in it, but what we're talking about here is actually 500, 600 years before that. That you have on the side of the hill here, you have all the ash from that destruction. So it's just exactly the way that the Bible explained it. What happened was the Babylonians just destroyed the outer wall here at this place. We were a few years ago, we were looking at it, and we were looking at the tons of pottery, broken pottery that was here from all the different periods. And when the Babylonians burnt the place, they destroyed the wall and then left it to the weather. And the whole thing just slid down the hill. And so it's actually still very dangerous to try to stand on the top of the hill, because it's very slippery all the way back from that time.
Now, when you say ash over at the Temple Mount and here, it's not wood ash.
I was surprised to find that stone actually burns and turns to ash itself.
Right. Yeah.
If you heat this local limestone, if you put fire underneath it, what happens is it cracks and crumbles and turns into ash.
Well, that time you and I were at the Temple Mount, you said, "Oh my goodness, there's ash," and you put your finger in it. It was really amazing for me. I was still pretty much a novice here, to be with you and to hear you say that. And I think at the time I was going, well, why? What kind of ash? And at least at that location, it was limestone ash.
It's made there. That's what happened. That's how they destroyed this. The Western Wall, what some people call the Wailing Wall. The way they destroyed it is that it seems that they built fires underneath the stones, and they crumbled, and so that would have caused at least some of the ash. what you see here, you're really looking at just the skeleton, the bare bones of what was found. You have to realize that at one time this was really a living city, and people in ancient times really loved color. So everything looks gray and looks very, very classical kind of almost gray marble type of stone. But all these local stones, but they liked color. So if you went back in those times, you would see that they decorated everything with very colorful paint, and they put lovely carpets.
And perhaps there was some greenery too, like we see over here, flowers and gardens.
Yeah, very much, probably very much like that. They want to keep this clear of it because all of these ruins are extremely, extremely important.
What are we looking at here?
This is a model of the palace that we were just looking at. Actually, this is mistaken.
Okay.
No, it's the first time I'm seeing this.
What?
But I'm just noticing the palace would have been up on the top.
Right, and they've got it down on the half.
And they've got it
down
here because this isn't. This is the house we were looking at.
Ah.
Last year when we were coming out here, we worked all the way up to the time the war started. The war started and everything stopped.
Huh.
And we had all Arab workers, most of them from the territories from Judea and Samaria, otherwise called the West Bank.
Yeah.
So they were coming out, and it was quite an adventure, trying to talk to them between English, Hebrew, and a little bit of Arabic that I know. Huh. But when the war came, everything stopped, and we had a break for several months. All of a sudden, in January, they called me and they said, "We need you out there. Get out, get out
here,
there."
You mean out here?
Yeah, to work. We need you to be there. And so in the middle of January, when it's raining and really cold and awful out here,
yeah,
we had to start back into work. Walking down here, one of the things that's very interesting to see as you're on your way down to the Pool of Siloam, at the turn of the 20th century, there was a Jewish scholar named Weil who opened the book of Nehemiah to Nehemiah chapter 3. And he was reading about the different places that were mentioned in the book of Nehemiah. And from that, he got an idea and started to dig here in this area. What he discovered were actually the tombs of the house of David.
Oh, really?
If you come here, they'll show you the tomb of David farther up the hill on the western hill,
right,
where it's called Mount Zion.
Yes,
today,
which is not Mount Zion.
Not Mount Zion. That's actually part of the confusion. Maybe the reason it was called Mount Zion is because they thought that's where David's tomb was, and it says very clearly in the books of Samuel and in the books of Kings that David and the house of David, his descendants, were buried. Many of them were buried in the city of David. And he thought this one tomb that you can see, it's partly, they decided to cover it with a corrugated plastic there and some bamboo. That's actually the tomb number 1.
So that's likely to be the tomb of David?
This is very likely to be the tomb of David.
Huh.
And then Solomon would have been buried someplace here probably as well. Huh. And I was thinking about it, and if they followed the practices of the Israelites in those times, they would have buried him in the same tomb. Huh. They usually moved the bones over or put the bones underneath, and then the new burial they put on top. So it was probably, very likely anyway, the same tomb.
Wow.
So this is where the kings were. It's not much to look at now. There's a lot of refuse in here, but it's been very quarried out. Huh. And something that I'm not really sure of, in Nehemiah 3 it talks about the artificial pool. So I'm wondering, this looks like it could be a pool here. I have to go back and see what the reports are, but this could be the artificial pool that it speaks of.
Huh.
So this is, as we're getting closer to the Pool of Siloam, this is very important because Nehemiah sort of links them all together. And so I think even though there's always some question, we still don't have, say, an inscription saying this is the tomb of David. This is the place where it's supposed to be.
So we're making our way down to the Pool of Siloam, and
yeah, and this is actually the last few steps before we get down. But you can see how steep it is.
Wow.
Everything comes down to this corner. This is actually the deepest part of ancient Jerusalem. So we're hundreds of meters below the Temple Mount now already, and it's just very, very steep. It's difficult to walk.
Thankfully, we made it safely because it's very slippery too.
Very steep and very slippery.
Thank God for the handrail. We are now at the Pool of Siloam.
We've made it.
Yes.
We've made it to the Pool of Siloam.
Thank you, Yehuda. What a privilege to get a tour of the city of David, not from a guide, but from an Israeli archaeologist. Be sure to come back for part 2 of this report, in which we make our way to the Pool of Siloam and where we witness its most recent, ongoing, and significant excavation. Yehuda will also introduce us to his wonderfully readable and challenging book, Master Plan for the Redemption of Israel. As we are rapidly approaching the end of the year, let me encourage both of us to lay aside every weight, every sin which so easily ensnares us, and run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Yeshua, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Reporting from IsraelForEndTimes.com, and until next time, this is Brian Schrauger.